This is Tim Storey, the life coach to the stars. I have spoken in 75 countries, helping people turn their setbacks into comebacks. Here's what I have found. Every single person faces a setback, but the greater the setback, the greater the comeback. On today's CIA Contagious Influencers of America podcast, with my friend David Sams, you're going to get inside the head of Olympic gold medalist and world influencer Scott Hamilton. At only 5'4" tall, Scott has faced many giants in his own life. He was given up as an infant. He stopped growing as a child. Can you imagine that? He faced cancer as an adult. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2004, and then again in 2010. And could you imagine, it came back in 2016. This four-time world U.S. champion came back stronger than ever before. And despite the fact that he has fallen on the ice some 41,600 times over his career as a figure skater, he has gotten up time and time again. He is definitely a champion of champions. You're going to learn from Scott how you too can overcome that defeat that you face head on. Welcome to this edition of CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, where we mentor you to become a contagious influencer. With my friend, 9-time Emmy-winning producer, director, and writer, and contagious influencer, David Sams.
Tim, I've fallen down so many times. I can't tell you how many bruises I have. I can't tell you how many heartaches I've had. And I can't tell you that, I like to say I'm a better man for falling down so many times and getting back up. But there is no way that I can possibly compare myself to our guest today. Scott, welcome to Contagious Influencers.
It's so great to be here. And yes, winning a gold medal is really cool and all that. There's actually nothing like it. But honestly, the rest of life and being a dad and a husband and, just this adventure is every bit as thrilling.
Well, gold medals aside, who is Scott Hamilton and why did God put you on this planet?
Scott Hamilton is a short, bald guy who is not afraid of work and really just love being involved in other people's lives. That's pretty much it. It kind of covers a lot of different things. I love my family. I love my children. I love my wife. I love my community. I try to do whatever I can to encourage people through their challenges, especially cancer. I have a foundation that supports patients and funds, cutting edge research. I have a skating academy where I give back all the things that I've learned, try to give to people to truly enjoy and love the ice as I did, and for whatever their reasons are. And I really love supporting people in the community and doing whatever I can to create a more positive environment.
And yet, your life story, the life story that you own today, almost did not happen.
I was an unwanted child. I was adopted at 6 weeks of age. I was really grateful that I was able to meet the demands of the pregnancy and make it all the way to the end. It keeps rewriting itself. Whatever chapter or whatever episode I am in my life right now, I'm just trying to do it as well as I possibly can. And, the older I get, the more I realize that I don't really need to strangle every single moment, and just squeeze every drop out of it, or almost in desperation feel like I don't want this to end. It's this really become this really free-flowing thing where I just really want to step in where I can, share where I am right now, share whatever I feel I need to be sharing with people, and, use whatever platform I have through the different times where I've been able to be in front of people to encourage and to uplift and to inspire and and to, try to shake off a lot of the toxicity that is existing in our world. So
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that. Well, you can either have contagious encouragement or contagious discouragement. You have faced so much discouragement and so many obstacles in your life, but you just don't come across to me as the type of guy that dwells on that.
Obstacles are to be overcome. Challenges are to be met. Disappointments are meant to really, I've learned to reroute you. It's like I really so desperately wanted this to happen and it didn't. And, sometimes I love that Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers, because sometimes we really think that we want something and we realize that it probably isn't in our best interests ultimately, or like, I'm really glad that didn't happen. Right. So for me, every time I've been knocked down, and again, when you're an ice skater, you fall down a lot and you get up a lot. I've really learned that, this is meant for my good. I try to, even cancer was meant for my good. All the brain tumors were meant for my good. And I look at those times as real forks in the road where I can choose which way I want to go. And I really try to get into a habit of taking the higher road. I lived, a crazy, wild, life that I look back on now and it's like, oof, I'm really glad I'm not that person anymore. But at the same time, I really want to learn from everything. And no matter what happens, I want to understand that it's for the best. It's not something awful, terrible, horrible. It's something that is meant to inspire me or to invigorate me or to allow me to just sit back and appreciate the easier times. And, I had a t-shirt made after my brain surgeries of 2010, and it just says, "This too shall pass." And honestly, everything will pass. Whatever is going on today, it'll not be that way in, hours, minutes, days, months, whatever.
Scott, there's someone listening to this show right now who's going through a really difficult season. They continue to fall time and time and time again. Maybe they're battling something bigger than life. Maybe it's cancer itself. What can you say to encourage them?
So much depends on what that is. Cancer is something that affects more people now than anything else. And it's something that really is your body sort of deciding it wants to do something to harm you. There's so many different treatment options out there now. There's so many different ways of treating it that I really try to tell people to, really understand their condition and understand all the options, not just the one that's being presented to you right now in the heat of the moment. Again, it's a really difficult process. I lost my mother to cancer and it totally rerouted my life. I survived cancer and it totally rerouted my life, so use this time, this adventure, for, really kind of a self-discovery, because, whether or not it's treatable or not, as long as there's breath in our lungs, we're going to live this life. And, if it's a broken relationship or, all these things that can happen, or a loss of a job, or, whatever, dysfunction in the family. These are all things that, we all are going to experience. And it's how we respond to things that truly give our lives quality. And sometimes it's easier to respond well to things than it is at other times. But I really, I really try to take the highest road possible all the time. And I encourage others to do that. It's just, we can't change things by being angry or bitter or scared or whatever. We can only really make our days more joyful and easier to live if we're in the moment and if we're able to really appreciate all the blessings that are in our lives.
You've had how many bouts with your brain tumor?
I'm on number 3. Well, actually, I was born with it, so 4. The first one was undiagnosed, but when I started skating, it stopped doing its mischief. So I don't know why.
The secret weapon.
Oh, yeah, just skate, right? So
you hit your head a lot.
I did. I probably fell in it more than, 15 times. But yeah, just for whatever reason, that was one of those things where it just stopped doing its mischief. I always try to process why. Maybe it was when I drove Gary Wachter's brand new bike into the telephone pole on his birthday party and I had like a concussion. Maybe that's what did it. Maybe I should do more of that, right? But yeah, this is, I had cancer in 97, which was one of the most important periods of my life, and it kind of made everything after possible. Without it, life would have gone on as it was. And I wouldn't have probably been in a position to accept and really celebrate faith. When you're living in the world of the world, it's different. When you're in the entertainment business and you're accepting the affections of 17,000 people on any given moment, right? It's easier to hide behind that. And cancer exposed me for who I was. I was on the bench in life. I was just on the bench. I was thinking that was enough. And to be able to be rerouted like cancer rerouted me was truly powerful, because the person I was back then, I had tons of integrity. I worked hard. I did all those things, but I was way more comfortable in front of 17,000 people than I was in front of one. And I knew I was broken. I knew cancer exposed that in me, and I knew I needed to kind of figure that out.
How you respond to something really is probably the thing that's holding many people or most people back. You have had so many things in your life to respond to, from your early childhood, being adopted, to the obstacles your parents faced with basically no money to put you through the training you went through.
And all the illness when I was little. Yeah. It's been a lot to, but again, that's kind of been my life, so it's sort of a muscle that I've built. If you do anything long enough, you're going to build muscle, whether it be physical muscle, mental muscle. It's more I have a friend who's a comedian, and the more he improvs, the more that muscle develops in his brain. But it's like when you've been knocked down, you get up, and you fall down, you get up, or you fail and you find a way to, overcome that. It's a muscle that you build in your psyche. So I don't worry about things like, I guess someone experiencing something like this for the first time. And I totally understand what they're going through. It's just, you decide. It's kind of like every moment, everything is a decision, I feel. And I try to look at it, just reading, especially New Testament, everything that Jesus does to us is don't worry about things. Worrying is not going to, add 1 second to your life. He tells us how to love each other. He tells us, if someone harms us, just to turn the other cheek. It's like all the things that he tells us, to love our enemies, to love our, neighbors, to love others as ourselves, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your everything. All those things. If I truly apply them, it's like an infomercial, right? And it really works. It's like this thing. It's like all of it works. Like loving my children as I want to be loved by my Creator. It changes things. It's like I make mistakes all the time. I'm late on projects, or I don't do things the way, I know I can. It's beneath what I'm capable of doing. And we all do this every day, no matter what it is. And it's like, well, how do I want my Father in heaven to respond to me? Do I want him to actually scold me and shut me down? And it's like, no, like he's allowing me to, self-discover. He's allowing me to truly understand the capacity that is out there for all of us to, we meet deadlines, we respect others, we do things as we're meant to do them, and we in a way that we know is right. And my goodness, the joy and the ease of life and everything else that comes from that is something where I don't need to be oppressed or punished every time I do something wrong. And I just need to learn from it. And, that's where I just, the hope and the promise and the love of Jesus is something that truly identifies all of that. It's like, I know you're going to, you're by nature going to mess up, but I've taken care of that. it's not what you do for me, it's what I've done for you. Now, what are you going to do? And it's like, yeah, I'm going to get busy. I want to do good things. I want to get involved in my community. I want to give my time. I want to, love my kids. I want to set a good example for them. I want to, help people through their struggles. And I want to write books that, really redirect people's lives and all these things that, as a good usage of time. And, I really try to do more of that than anything else. And when I'm disappointed or if I'm let down or if I'm hurt in some way, shape, or form, I just try to process it differently.
Well, it's been my experience that sometimes when we are brought to our knees, that's when we find that we need God the most. And I know in my own life, sometimes I've faced roadblocks. God's put up roadblocks for me, and frankly, it's kept me from driving off the road. So now when you first discovered that you had a brain tumor, you had just married Tracy, right?
What happened was we got married, and, if I tell people all the time, I want to do a pamphlet on how to get engaged, married, and pregnant in order in 3 months. This is how you do it. So we went from being, dating to married to within, our son was born 9 months and 2 days after we got married. And it was in his 6th month of life that I realized that I don't really want to be away anymore. I don't really feel the need to be on the road or performing like that anymore. It was 5 times the work for a quarter of the return on investment of time, when you get older and your body doesn't work the same. So I just thought, now's a good time to step away and just be a dad. I was given this beautiful gift of a wife and a child. And so I stepped away. And then after I stepped away that next fall, about 8 months later, I was diagnosed with a pituitary brain tumor called a craniopharyngioma. And it's one that, I was born with. And it was really wild. I didn't, I have this young family. I don't know how to tell them, right? What do I say? And so I went from the hospital back to the hotel. And Tracy and her parents and Aiden, my oldest son, were just arriving. And he was right then 14 months. And she said, "What's going on?" I go, "I'll tell you upstairs." And so she instantly knew something was up. And we got into the room and put the phone down on the floor, and Aiden's just banging the phone. It's like 14 months old, whatever. And she just goes, "What's going on?" And I just said, I have a brain tumor. And she just grabbed both my hands and started to pray. And it was really powerful, like really powerful. And I realized in that moment just the power of prayer and where I wanted to take all things in my life from that day forward. I knew that never was I going to have a situation where I wasn't going to go straight to him. And so we just prayed, and then they had to do a biopsy, which is a frightening thing because if they make any kind of oops in the biopsy process, a lot of bad things can happen. Basically, loss of motor function, memory, speech, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when I woke up in the biopsy, I knew where I was, why I was there, and who I was. And then I just went, test. Okay, I can speak. All right, I guess that went well. And, I just started the adventure of now, what's life like now? And, it was radiation. Brain radiation is, after chemo, it's kind of rough, because you chemo brain, which is a little bit of a fog. And then you go into big radiation, into your brain. And it's 201 points culminating on the tumor itself, which was right in my optic chiasm. And then, I really realized, I remember who I was back then, and I just felt quicker, maybe I was wittier back then. I have no idea, but I just know that I've lost more than a step or two in just this whole process. And so I guess that's another way of, just the Lord tapping the brakes. He's saying, slow down, I got you, slow down. And so over the next months, I recover, the brain tumor's gone. Over the next years, another family, we have another son after that first brain tumor. It comes back, I guess 6 years later after the first one. And at that point, my youngest son was 2. And then we go to this whole period of the Haitian earthquake and what that did to Tracy, my wife, how devastated she was and how she knew she had to do something. A brain tumor comes back. We deal with that over a whole summer. One surgery didn't go quite as planned, and so it created other issues. And so I spent 2 months trying to figure out how to get rid of a brain tumor and now an aneurysm in my brain. And we finally fixed all that. And then getting back into life again, we brought these 2 kids home from Haiti, and now we have 4 kids, which we weren't busy enough before. And, it's just that the endless adventure. What comes out of a difficult situation? Well, it's a decision. And we decided to do good things, bring these kids home, give them a life, build our family bigger and broader and more diverse and all these things. It was really kind of awesome. But then it was just, again, keep an eye on the health and make sure that I keep getting stronger and more, more understanding and more practicing of my faith. And then the next brain tumor comes, and this one just was different. 2016, August, all I heard was get strong. That's all I heard in my whole being. It just was get strong. And so I spent the next, year plus just getting strong and just cutting out all the bad things in my diet and introducing different things that creates a different, like high pH water, create a different environment in my body that, those types of cells don't like, they just they don't respond well to an alkaline environment. So I really just tried to give up sugar and pretty much anything else. And so, I do a little coffee in the morning and then water the rest of the day. And the tumor miraculously, inexplicably shrunk twice, 2 different scans, and they don't necessarily know what's going on. For whatever reason, these tumors don't shrink. They just don't. They just grow. It's the nature of them. They just grow, and so they can't figure out why it's shrinking. And I give all glory to God. For whatever reason, he has another chapter he's trying to write through all this. And hopefully I'll be obedient and attentive enough to truly understand what I'm supposed to be living and sharing now. So, it's really hard to take a miracle like that when you say goodbye to 3 people you love to cancer. Why weren't they given the same opportunity? It's like, the survivor's guilt, that you get. But I'm just trying to, stay alive and stay present and faithful.
Wow. I can so relate. About 8 years ago or so, I had a stroke and an aneurysm, and it was life-changing. 3 years ago, I went to the doctor, and the doctor did the scans and said, you don't need to come back. I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, no, your aneurysm's gone. So I believe that God has us here for a reason. Both of us, the 2 of us. He's not done with us yet. Let me ask you this. I think one of the things I dealt with being in the entertainment business and the television business for so many years was the pressure that you put on yourself to succeed, the pressure to make a difference, to be somebody. But, we define things so differently now, post the stroke, post the aneurysm, post, tumor number 3, and now number 4 for you. You just look at things differently, don't you?
Yes. And then a lot of that is why Finish First, the book, came to be, because I realized that the victories in your life, they're very personal and they're very specific to you. Wherever you are and whatever you need to be doing, there are victories, and they're winning in life. Finishing first is like the greatest thing. It's like, I won, but finishing first, whatever your aspirations are, it can be daily. It can be by the minute. It can be by having huge goals, but every victory is made up of a million small victories, right? It's like showing up every day, being attentive, understanding, kind of where your limitations are. Like I tell my kids all the time, I go, what's the greatest strength? And they go, Dad. I go, what's the greatest strength? And they go, a lack of weakness. All right. So how do we chip away at our weaknesses? How do we understand those things? So I look at, all victories in many ways of being equal, whether it be an Olympic gold medal, which is kind of like in sport, that's looked upon as being like the greatest thing ever. But I looked at that as being the product of a million small like decisions of, I'm going to show up today. And I'm not only going to show up today, I'm going to work harder than I've ever worked. And not only am I going to show up today, but I'm not going to go hang out with my friends till midnight because I have a session at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm going to make a lot of decisions that allow me to be successful in these goals, these daily goals. So, the second part of the title of the book, Finish First, is Winning Changes Everything. So if you get into a winning lifestyle, if you get into a winning day-to-day, being aspirational of just saying, I know I have a gifting. I know, because everybody has a calling. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has what they have. How do I do that as well as I possibly can so that when I take my last breath, I know that I live this life joyfully and victoriously? How do we do that? So I've laid it all out in this book. And it's like, once you get to these victories, whatever it is, like I use the example of my son, both of them have my genetic being of struggling a little bit in math, right? But they're totally intent on, like, they're going to get an A in math. They're going to figure it out. So once they get an A in math, it's like they just got an A in their toughest subject. That builds trust with a teacher. Now they're more willing to kind of, see that your effort in there. So those A's become easier. They start coming up in bunches. And then once you get those A's, all of a sudden now you can get into a better university or college, secondary school. Once you do that, then the job availability for you is much broader and greater, which offers more opportunity for your family and your children too. And so winning does change everything. It changes the trajectory, it changes the quality, and it changes the enjoyment of your life. And when I talk about it, it's really interesting because a lot of people go, "It's not me." And I go, well, of course it is. Yeah, everybody's got their path. Everybody's got their purpose. Everybody's got their identity. And it's figuring out what you want to do. And here are steps to accomplish, those things. And so many of your dreams, like standing on that podium in Sarajevo and having that gold medal around my neck, it was the end of one goal that I never thought to dream until a couple of years before. Like I just thought I was stupid and irresponsible. Why would I ever win an Olympic gold medal? It's just crazy. But then I won the world championships. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's the same guys. If I'm beating them now, I'll probably be able to beat them in a couple of years. So I had to stay on that path. And what do I need? I need to reinvent myself a little bit. I need to update everything. I need to be fresh. I don't want people thinking that they're looking at the same thing year after year. And then standing up there, I realized that I'm the only one standing here, but there were a lot of people that went into this victory, I shouldn't be the only one standing here. And that gave me a really solid perspective of understanding that we can get to a lot of what we want to accomplish in life, but we more than likely can't do it alone. We need support. We need help. We need people around us that are like-minded and that will share in our challenges and our victories. So that one victory opened up more doors for me where I had other challenges and other things that I could accomplish. And each one of those opened up more doors for me where I could do more things. But every single one of those doors came with a level of commitment and a level of, how do I do this now? And most of it was fueled by just showing up.
Well, yeah, that's a huge amount of the equation, and you emphasize that in the book, and that is our job many times is just to show up.
Most of it is just showing up, and it's honestly it's showing up while at the same time making easy choices. It's like I talk about this competitor I had years ago, and he was the most gifted skater I've ever seen in my life. And I knew that I could only envy this guy's talent. I could never beat him. And then I found out one morning that he fell in love with smoking pot. Easy choice, not to. And I realized that I could outwork him.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood there that was a choice that was made out of whatever circumstances. I have no idea. But what an unbelievable talent, but now is going to be diminished or sidetracked. And that was my in.
Mm.
I don't celebrate people's failures as much as, every single thing, about winning comes from small decisions, showing up. Do I feel like doing my long program today? No, but I'm going to because that'll make me stronger for tomorrow. And the days that you don't want to show up are the most important days to show up, because I realized that on those days where I didn't feel like going, the person that I was trying to beat, or the one that I needed to get past in order to get this job or this title or this medal, they were probably going to show up. So it was on me to do it. And you think that's really, oh my goodness, how do you show up every day? But the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like Donald Miller wrote the foreword in the book, which I thought was really amazingly generous of him. But he talks now about how he needed to lose all this weight. And he swims every day. And most days he goes, I don't feel like getting wet today. But he said by the fourth lap, he's so grateful he made the decision to go, because he feels better, looks better. He's more alive, more engaged. Just what he's building. He has so much more energy to fuel it. And it all comes from those daily commitments and those daily easy decisions to make. And a lot of people, I just don't think that they can make those decisions, but it's breaking a pattern and introducing a new one. And that's most of the battle right there.
So showing up is part of the equation, but then getting up is part of the equation.
Oh, the failure thing?
Well, how many times did you fall in your career?
Well, it's just an estimate, but no less than 41,600 times.
Wow.
But I got up 41,600 times. And that builds its own muscle in your psyche. It's like failure is temporary. I always, I talk about this thing. It was in my last book, The Great Eight, where I talk about, this chapter was fall down, get up and smile like Christy Yamaguchi. And basically that is, I saw her fall in a program one time, and she got up and she presented it like it was just the greatest thing that ever happened. It was like, ta-da. And she went right back into her program. And at the end of it, it was like, I thought I remembered her falling, but there's nothing about that I remember. I knew there's a life lesson. Mm-hmm. It was like, I knew she fell. I remembered the fall, but I wasn't experiencing that. And it was, if our lives were a 4.5 minute skating routine and we make one fall, it's 1 second in 4.5 minutes. Are we going to allow that 1 second to diminish the rest of the performance? And Christy didn't do that. And so I always remember that as being, if I fall down in my life and if I make a mistake, no matter how much it is, I have to move on from it. And I have to basically put it behind me. I can't change it. I can't take it back. I can't adjust it. I can't tweak it. I can't do anything to, it happened. It's something that was there. It was awful. I didn't like it. It hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, everything. But now it's the next steps are the most important ones. And I've learned that over and over and over again from all the knockdowns and all the, the things that have happened. And it's just, you get up and it's what's next that really, you can't do a thing with that. It's done. It's over. Let's keep moving forward, and let's just sell the rest of the routine like nothing ever happened. And it's not denial or, it's not being like doing revisionist history. Yeah, it happened, but I'm not going to give it that importance. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move on, but I'm not going to base every single thing that happens in that failure and relive that failure over and over and over again. And that's part of, processing failure. There's not a person I've ever met, no matter what, whether they be, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or, a 2-year-old that are just trying to figure out, how to live each day, where we don't fail. We fail. We fail all the time. And if we're not failing, we're not trying. And I really want to shift the understanding of failure as being, it's not something that is devastating, debilitating. It's not the villain. It's the hero in the story. We learn from failure. We test our limits to failure. We grow from failure. It's not something that it shouldn't be debilitating. I'm taking the attitude that it's the greatest thing ever. Like my son, he just started playing hockey and he lost a game, and he was in the car and he was really upset. He goes, I can't believe we lost as badly as we lost. I go, well, I mean, what did you learn? He goes, well, I got to skate a lot better. I got to skate faster, and I got to work on my stick handling, and I need to get my shot up. And I was really surprised at how fast the game was. And I said, that's great, buddy. What would you have learned if you won? And he goes, I don't know. So failure is really a powerful tool. It's not the villain in a story. If anything, it's the teacher in the story. It's the person that helps you get to the next level. And we've all made this villain of failure so much that we want to shroud our children to never feel failure, to never understand the sting of that. So we give participation trophies. We don't have a winner or a loser. We just have everybody's in there learning. And in many respects, it's almost like sleepwalking. There's nothing that you can walk away with from that experience except for basically the experience itself. Where did I learn? Where did I grow? How do I know where I stand? And people always want to know that. But without failure, without that winner or loser, you don't learn. And losing was the greatest teacher I ever had. I lost dead last competition after competition. And when you're a boy in skating, like if you medal and you're a girl, you're good. If you're a boy and you don't, you probably should be doing something else. I was coming in dead last a lot, and in humiliating ways of just falling and skating beneath, whatever I trained to. And I look at that, and it allowed me to understand training methods, understand commitment, understand why I was failing. And once I put a new attitude and a new practice into my daily regimen, I went from October of 1980 to March of 84 in my amateur career, never losing a competition. And I'm not saying this for any other reason, but it's all based out of a huge dedication to failure, right? It hasn't been done since. Since.
Wow.
It hasn't been done since. And I look at that and I go, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying it's really hard. But there's got to be a different mentality when you put yourself out there that is based in repetition and integrity. Integrity is gigantic in this story because without having the ability to withstand the pressure and withstand the forces of nature, you're going to fall down. And, I tell the story in the book about Biodome 2, where they wanted to see if they could grow an atmosphere basically in a controlled circumstance. And they realized that trees would grow really fast, and then they'd come to maturity and they'd fall over. And they couldn't figure out why until they realized there's no wind. We need resistance to build that stress wood. We need resistance in order to, we need to be pushed and pulled in order to grow our root structure. We need to be moved and challenged all the time. Otherwise, we have nothing to hold us up. And I thought that was a great analogy, and we hold that in the book as well. But I think ultimately, failure is something to be embraced and not something to be avoided.
When's your birthday?
August 28th.
And you'll be 60.
Yeah.
Mine is August 5th, and I'll be 60.
All right. Right there.
Isn't it cool, though, to think, you know what? It really is cool to have the backstory and the wisdom. I mean, you always hear about wisdom, but I think about what I know today versus when I was 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is astonishing. And then I think, oh my gosh, what's going to be, how much wisdom am I going to have when I'm 80?
Well, it's like a friend of mine, Bill Howard. He's a minister in town. When his kids are young, he said, we're going to have a race. We're going to do the same puzzle. And all four of you guys, you're going to build a puzzle, and I'm going to build a puzzle in the other room. Let's see who finishes first. And what he does is he keeps the box.
So they can't see the picture?
They don't know because they're little. They don't know. Right. We have the box.
Yeah.
Right. We can see the box. We know what the picture looks like.
Right.
But when you're young, you have no idea. You're just trying to find corner and end pieces. You're just trying to figure it out. And you don't know what the picture looks like. But when you're older, you've got the box. It's kind of a cool thing to be able to look back and know that I don't know everything. I may be only, toe deep in the water, but I'm hungry to learn. I'm hungry to grow, and I'm really hungry to share. And, I look at, all the haters on, in writing this speech to support Finish First, the book. Part of my introduction is all the bad things that have happened to me, not all the good things, as the platform, because normally when you're introduced, it's all the good things that have happened to you. And in this respect, it's, it's kind of like, these are all the horrible things that have happened to me. But it's wild that in one whole section of Edit Your Critics, that one, it's all the Twitter feed that people they hate on me like you would not believe. It's just, it's like maybe right now on the radio, it's like, I wish you would just shut up. It's like, or, just all these awful, horrible, terrible things that people just say. And it's like, I collected them all and I'm reading them and I'm just dying laughing because it's like, wow, somebody took the time out of their busy day to write something absolutely acidic. It was like, that would hurt if I gave it any
weight,
power to do it or weight. Yeah. But it's really funny that, you can look at things with a different perspective when we get to our, we own the box.
Right. Does it ever bother you when you're being interviewed? I think every interview I've ever seen, people talk about your size.
Yeah.
But you've turned that into...
No, it's the hero. I mean, the thing with me is if I would have been taller, it would take me longer to recover. Or if I made a mistake in a jump, it's like, it's the difference between an aircraft carrier and a speedboat. Yeah, I'm a speedboat. I fit, it's like, I used to always say, well, what if I were taller? What if I were, better looking? What if I were this? What if I were that? And I go, but I'm not. I'm who I am. So if I celebrate that, I give other people permission to as well. So in any speech or any talk I give, I talk about being a short, bald, half-neutered, chemoed, radiated, surgically repaired, retired male figure skater of unknown ethnic origin. And that's kind of my laundry list of junk, right? But it's absolutely to the core of my being, that's who I am. I'm a short, bald guy who was a former figure skater. It's like, does it get any tougher than that? Well, I mean, it's awesome.
The book is Finish First by Scott Hamilton. Scott, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you. It's a joy.
It has been amazing, and I wish you much continued success. And hey, you got to go take care of your kid. He's getting braces on today.
I know. It's my second one.
You got to go be a dad.
Yeah, I got 4 kids, and my daughter's been through her braces. She looks great. Now my oldest birth child is getting his braces, and he's like, "Come on, Dad." He goes, "Why do I get all the crooked teeth?" I go, your little brother has it worse.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
I tell you, some interviews really hit home. When you see a man that had adversity in his life, but it kept on coming back, but he rose up one more time. That's what the Bible even talks about, that a righteous man will fall down 7 times and rise up 7 times stronger. And that's what happened with Scott Hamilton. He found out he had cancer, thought it was gone. It comes back, goes from one challenge to the next. David Sams, I'll tell you, he could have quit so many times, but he did not. What did you think about the interview?
The thing that really got to me the entire time is just how loving and authentic the man is. I mean, I meet a lot of people. I sit face to face with a lot of folks, but there is just something that is so genuine, so loving, and so very, very, very authentic about Scott.
As a life coach, there's some takeaways that I see. Is it one, he was willing to face his fears straight on and do something about it. See, a lot of people, they have fear, but they don't face their fears and do something about it. Well, what happens? They get intimidated and they get frustrated. David, let's talk about your life. Because part of this program is David, you, facing your Goliaths. Because on the outside, we see all these Emmys that you've won, 9. I think about you on the Oprah show, working there, on Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, all the amazing things that you've been able to do. But David, you faced your Goliaths. And today we're going to find out, did you win every time? Are there times in your life, just like Scott Hamilton, that maybe you thought you were down and may not get back up? What is one of the biggest giants that you have faced, David?
Fear. I have let fear strangle me throughout my life. There have been times that I felt like I was being led. I felt like God opened a door for me. But for whatever reason, I would decide not to walk through it. I would either think that I'm either not prepared, or I never really ever thought, for whatever reason, that I wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had the talent, but I did not feel as though sometimes I was just afraid to ask the question, or I was afraid to say hi.
Yeah.
It's the most ridiculous thing in my life.
What's an amazing thing is that when people look at your life from the outside and they say, wow, David Sams has it so together, it must be a very lonely place to know that inside they may not know that fear that you really are facing. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say that started at an early age. I think maybe one of the reasons is because, when I was a kid, I was this overweight little kid, not so little. I think I was 270 in high school, but I always had this mental block of some sort that would get in my way.
Yes.
It would get in my way with the girls. It would get in my way of going out for things that I should go out for. I remember when I was in high school, my English teacher was also my drama coach.
Yep.
And he saw something in me, and he literally pushed me on stage, and I ended up getting the starring role of the school play because somebody literally pushed me out on the stage and helped me find my footing. But throughout my life, I want to tell you something. There has been this voice inside of me that would tell me, you're not good enough.
Yes. It's
You
so
don't
important
measure
that we
up.
talk about this, David, because when somebody is labeled, a label is a tag that denotes your value, usage, and your content. So if you labeled yourself as the chubby kid or the kid that tries things and it doesn't work, so you labeled yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to start to react and respond according to your label or tag. And so you see with Scott Hamilton, he somehow found a way to go past the tag or the label of you have cancer, you are dying. Something in him said, no, I'm not. I'm going to rise up. So something rose up in you that said, I'm not the chubby kid. I'm not just the person who's failing. I'm going to somehow get past this failure. Give me one thing that helped you get past this place called failure.
I think I found my after I got out of high school, I actually sold my first TV show. And when I proved to myself that I could create something and get somebody to buy it, that meant something to me. And while everybody else was basically following the herd, going to school, going to college, whatever, I was already working in a television station.
Yes.
And then when I got the call from Hollywood to go to Hollywood, my gosh, I was in my early 20s and I already got that call. So I gained confidence along the way. But it's funny because every time I would gain that confidence and get that footing on the ladder,
Mm-hmm.
I would look up and the ladder would be that much taller.
Yes.
And I would be trying to climb that ladder, yet I would always think that I'm not good enough to reach the top.
Yeah.
So even when I got to Hollywood, I still had the same mental blocks that I had when I was back in local television in Columbus. They were just higher than they were before.
Oh, this is amazing. I want to ask you a question as a friend and as a life coach. David, why have you decided to open up on this podcast? Because it's getting a lot of energy. Thousands and thousands of people are now hearing about your personal challenges at times. Why have you decided to open up to me?
I turned 60 years old this year, and I have decided that this is going to be my breakout decade. This is going to be a decade of significance. This is going to be a decade when I want to let go of all fear.
Yes.
I want to let go of all fear. I'm talking about personally, mentally, physically, and we can go on that later.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just telling you right now, I've had all of these hangups for the past 59 years, and I want you to help me get through them.
Yes. And we're going to do it. And one of the things that I'm going to say to you right now that I like that you're doing is that you're isolating the problem. A lot of times people say everything is wrong. No, write it down. I want to know the top 3 things that are troubling you in your life. So today, as we talked about Scott Hamilton, we talked about some of the things he went through, and one was facing fears and getting back up. So as we talk to you, David, today, we're talking about the fears. So you got to isolate the problem. So the problem is fear. So now we've isolated it, but what do we do about it? What is the solution? And you're going to really love this one today. See, if you do not run to the refuge, who is God, you will run to a refuge, which is other things.
Mm-hmm.
So with your fears, you isolate the problem. Okay, I have fear. So now you have a choice, David. Do you run to the refuge or do you run to a refuge?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm undone. I need repair. So the difficult thing is that I think a lot of people, and maybe you did it, they fake it till they make it.
Mm-hmm. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for just the last few moments.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have felt my entire life. I have felt not my whole life. I have felt like there was a lot of faking it.
Much of your life.
Much of my life.
Okay.
I think that goes back to the whole idea of not being good enough, being the fat kid.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if you're not the best looking kid, and if you're not the greatest football player, and you're not the best at X, Y, and Z, then you have the only thing, you revert to faking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there has been some of that throughout my life.
And one of the things we're doing in this podcast is we're showing people that you may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be. And if you are okay with your authentic self
Mm-hmm.
in your journey right now, so right now, maybe your life is not doing too well, but at least you're listening right now. So you had to make some right now decisions back then, David, to become the David Sams that I met.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the older I get, the more authentic let me put it this way: the older I get, the more comfortable I am with myself and in my own skin.
Yes.
And the older I get, the more authentic I become.
And I've noticed that some of your authenticity pushes the boundaries with some people who love to play it safe.
Oh yeah,
I've seen some of your posts. I hear you on the radio, and I think sometimes you say things where somebody will say, why is a guy that powerful saying something that makes me feel uncomfortable? They almost want you just to have a scripted speech,
right.
and just, draw within the boundaries, David.
Yeah, I wouldn't do too good with a teleprompter, but I feel like, well, look, just what we're doing right now. This is not something a guy with a great bio, a great read. This is not something you normally do on a Facebook.
No, get life coached.
Put your dirty laundry out
Right.
there, right? I'm willing to do this because I feel like this is my. I'm going through a period of There's a lot of redemptive value here.
Yes.
I want to learn. I don't want to. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
In a year or 10 or 20 or 30 years, whatever it is. I don't want to die without at least attempting.
Yes.
To be the most authentic, real guy. For myself, for my own love of my own self, and because that's also what I want my daughters to see, And the other thing is that that's what I want my love of my life to see.
Yes.
That I don't want to be a fake when they put me in the ground. Okay, I want them to say he was the most authentic, caring guy, one of the most authentic, caring gentlemen that I've ever known. That's what I want to be. I don't want to be the 9-time Emmy Award winning producer on my headstone.
I hear you loud and clear. You're listening to David Sams and Tim Storey. They call me the life coach to the stars. This is a program called CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. We're talking to the man who runs this program. And as part of the segment, I actually take him through a real life coaching session. All right. So final thing on life coaching you and helping you to face your giants. Okay. So number one, I feel that you have isolated the problem, that sometimes you dealt with fear since childhood. Okay. And you dealt with it in various ways. One of those ways is you decided to get bigger on the inside. You got bigger on the inside. When you feed your faith, you starve your doubts. Okay?
It's good, yeah.
Isn't that true? But if you don't feed your faith, David, the old David will come back and knock on your door and say, I'm still around. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have noticed that.
I don't care how big you get.
Mm-hmm.
I can work with the biggest actors in the world, and they say, Tim, I just don't have it today. I know my lines, but I just don't have it today. You know why? Because that old fear of the childhood knocked back on the door. So every single day, David Sams, you have to feed your faith and starve your doubt.
I love that. Well, Tim, this has been wonderful. I can't wait for our next session. I can't wait for us to get back together here in a few days. And, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this with me.
Yes.
And I know that there are going to be so many people that are listening to this who are going to want to write in and ask you their questions.
Yes.
So let's tell everyone how they can get a hold of you.
Yes.
And how they can find you.
So I'm at timstorey.com. That's TIMSTOREY. I have an E in my story. So Tim Storey, STOREY.com. And that's how you can get a hold of us and find out more about how we do life coaching, my book, Come Back and Beyond, and all the things that we do. But I also want to commend you as someone that all my friends look up to and I look up to show us your frailties, that you still have things hanging out. And every single week, we're going to be working on David Sams, working on his Goliaths. And working on them. You're going to face them, but you're going to work on them.
And that's exactly what I'm afraid of. Tim, I have so many giants that I've been facing, but you know what? I trust you. You're such a good friend, and boy, you have life coached so many wonderful people. And I can't wait to see where this all ends up with you. And yeah, it's a little scary. It's a little weird putting my stuff out there, but if I can help somebody by just going for it, I'm willing to do it. So let's see where this goes. It's a new thing for me. I just want to thank all of you for subscribing, for downloading our podcast and subscribing. And please do tell other folks about it, your friends about it. It's something that we feel is really going to bring you great value over time. So don't miss an episode. We've got some tremendous interviews lined up for you here on CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. Of course, you can find us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. I happen to get mine on Podcast Addict. So until next time, this is David Sams, just reminding you to go out there and live your life in living color, because at the end of the day, it sure is a lot more fun than living it in black and white. See you next time.